What's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg, and this is another chance encounter.
Hey, what's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg. I'm a commercial real estate guy. I'm from the internet. We're seeing more properties like this being built in front of a house that's going to be torn down soon.
I understand that there are power lines that are just kind of close.
What's up again? This is Dan Fredenberg, and that there is a commercial real estate building.
I'm joined today with Shawn Griffith. How you doing today, Shawn?
Outstanding. How are you doing, Dan?
I'm fantastic. I've got my favorite audience member watching today because this is a chance encounter. And what do we do here? Well, I interview commercial real estate investors. Why do I do that? Part of it is because it's the law and we have to. But the bigger reason is because how are you going to do business unless you know everybody you can do business with? So the legal compliance is just kind of icing on the cake. But before we get too excited about that, Shawn, can you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Oh, absolutely. And thanks for having me on today, Dan. My name's Shawn Griffith. I've been investing in multifamily real estate for over 10 years. About a little over a year ago, we decided to dive into multifamily syndication and haven't looked back.
All right, beautiful. So on this show, I go through with my commercial real estate investor guests. I go through the 5 different motivations that I found are distinct among commercial investors. Then I pull out the Dan Does Deals commercial roll die with the 6 different roles in a commercial deal, and I say, hey, what's your core competency? I say, hey, which one of those are you going to do? And if you want your own copy of it, you can go to dandoesdeals.com. I don't even ask for your email address, which is a really, really bad idea. So you can just print it out. And the real goal here is to make sure that you can effectively communicate on the topic of commercial real estate. And what are you going to have to communicate first if you're getting into commercial real estate? Bing, you're going to have to. Of course, that didn't work. We've been struggling with all sorts of stuff today as far as getting this stuff to go. And if I go display capture like that, if I go that and I go like that, and it's not doing the thing. All right, I'm just going to use what's on my screen then. So even the newbies that I interview, they at least know what their motivation is, but they might not know what they're going to actually do when they get part of a commercial deal. So I go through these 5 different motivations to make that happen. So the first one is some people are looking to preserve their purchasing power. And what that means is they've already got the assets that provide cash flow to make ends meet. But when inflation rears its ugly head, you got to make more acquisitions or else it's going to ruin the party. So that's what some people are up to. That's not my big priority right now. Trading time for wealth, that is my priority right now. My background is in CRM technology. I used to work for a CRM company, and then I opened up my own agency before getting into real estate. And I realized that, hey, when you're earning in the form of salary or wages, you're paying more tax than anybody else. So it hit me as well, why don't I, pivot? Why don't I find a way to build equity instead? Because that's the whole goal of making all the money in the first place. So that's what I'm up to. But most of my guests, they're looking to take control of their time. They're looking to fast track their retirement. They're looking to, maybe work fewer months per year. Maybe it's fewer weeks per month or fewer hours per week, but that's what they're up to. The next group, they will not settle down in their 90s. They're so ambitious, they want to buy their entire hometown, and they're looking for the generational wealth. Maybe they want to make sure their great grandchildren never have to hold down a day job. But the last group, it maybe isn't their own family or their own legacy, but they want to have a legacy or an impact in another form. Maybe it's because they've picked a group of people. Maybe it's because of the environment. Maybe it's animals. Maybe they want to send people to Mars. But whatever it is, they are more they're more cognizant of how if you want to make a really big impact, finances and wealth is by far the most effective tool out there to make that happen. So of those 5 different motivations, what combination of those best describes you, Shawn?
Wow. So in November of 2020, my wife and I were sitting around the kitchen table talking about finances and retirement. And we realized that the bill of goods we'd been sold by Wall Street and corporate America was going to get us an okay retirement, but it wasn't going to be the retirement we wanted. We'd have to reduce our standard of living. We'd have to give up our charities and churches and travel. We wouldn't be able to travel the way we wanted. So the big thing with us is fast tracking their retirement and increasing the cash flow going into retirement.
Yep, I completely agree with that. And my way that I like to put it recently is at least if you're involved in something like commercial real estate and that wealth building, then at least you're leaving the door open for some sort of retirement. So it's good that you got to the point where you're still in the game or something like that. But that's the other thing that goes on. But let's get on to the actual commercial real estate part. And once again, I want to make sure that you learn how to effectively communicate on the topic of commercial real estate. But I also want you to understand how my guest fits into that entire whole. So let's go through these 6 rules real quick. First one, repositioner. It's an acquisitions person. It's a person who looks at a bunch of different properties, does a whole bunch of different paperwork, and they're going, well, what are they doing with all that paperwork? Well, there's a fancy word for it. It's called underwriting. So what it means is that they do the math. They figure out, is this property even making what this seller is telling me that they're making? They're figuring out, is it actually worth it? But the repositioning part is figuring out, how do we change the business or the property or something so that it makes more money than it is right now? And they've got a few different tools in their tool belt to pull that off. The first one is more efficient operations. You cut those expenses, you stop those Benjamins from clogging all the toilets, but there's more to operations than that as well. There's a marketing piece even, which is one of my fortes, which is to make sure that the vacancy rate stays low. The other thing is you can use technology to make sure that everything that needs to be automated is automated. So that's the operations piece, but usually that's not enough to make a deal work these days. So another big tool that a repositioner has, a classic one, is the contractor team. They do a value add, they make the place nicer, and then that way tenants are happy to pay more in rent, at least the new ones anyway. But there's one problem that a repositioner might run into if they're anything like me, because I'm from the internet, and that means I'm going to need a local. I'm going to need somebody who's boots on the ground, somebody to be there in an hour or two, because that's not going to be me. And they're there to make sure that the contractors are staying on schedule, not cutting corners, that sort of thing. This thing there, and then the operations, it's a similar accountability piece. And but the other way that the repositioner can find some upside, maybe they can get more competitive lending. And honestly, sometimes people don't think of the financiers, the people who only handle paper and money. They don't think of them as being a partner, and the law says that you actually have to, if you're going to be a GP, you have to have another role on it. But the financier is going to want to know something like the bank, the fund manager, whatever it is. They're going to want to know something I haven't mentioned yet. They're going to say, who's your sponsor? Who's your KP? And the story about that, sometimes in coaching programs, they kind of gloss over that part. And if you want to be eligible for a loan, then you have to have somebody in the fold who already owns a similar asset. So even Elon Musk, he just bought Twitter, but if he wants to buy a 350 unit apartment complex and he wants to get a loan, somebody in the fold has to already own a 350 unit apartment complex. And then you also have to have a certain amount of liquidity, and you also have to have a balance sheet of at least the amount of the loan. But if you got all those pieces, you got yourself a commercial real estate deal. So Shawn, what are you most likely to contribute to your next deal?
So typically I am a sponsor or KP on a deal. I'm also local in the DFW area. Google, Google's great for, the virtual drive-by, but for real time, I absolutely agree. You got to have those boots on the ground local. I also do a little bit of the repositioning work. I do a lot of underwriting. I look at a lot of deals. Contracting, I hire all that stuff out. You don't want me picking up a hammer. That would be bad. Probably end up costing more than just hiring somebody the first go around.
So it's in the liability section rather than the asset section.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right, right, right. Okay, good stuff. So, my next question for you then would be your ideal property. And when commercial investors are talking to each other, they're saying, hey, what's your buy box? What's your ideal property? They're mainly looking for three things. And Sean's already mentioned, alluded to one of them. The first one is geography. So, what states, what cities, what neighborhoods, what counties, all of that, that all counts. All right. So geography is the first thing they're going to want to know. Second thing, we're talking about commercial real estate and, industrial and warehousing. You're talking square footage, but in general, multifamily, the other types of, retail, self-storage, there's going to be a unit count. So the size of the deal is going to be, dictated based on the unit count and also where it is. But the third thing is class, and unfortunately, they use the same word to mean two different things. The first thing is the shape of the building. Is it all beat up or is it immaculate? Okay, and then the other one is actually talking about the area that the building is in. So what's the crime rate like? Are there good schools nearby? That sort of thing. And both of them are rated by the same system as in grade school. So there's like a D, a C minus, a B plus, A minus, so on. So Sean, as far as the properties that where it's easier to say yes, it's more difficult to say no, what you looking for?
So I love anything in the Sun Belt. Specifically, if I'm looking for a property, I look within about a 3-hour radius of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. I invest mostly in the southern Dallas-Fort Worth suburbs because they're building a lot of warehouse and light industrial. You alluded to some of the things that are important. For me, location is key. You can change a lot of things about a property. Location ain't one of them.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about the size, the number of doors or units. We typically like to see in the 80 to 120 unit range. And then there's a gap. I like to skip up to 180 and above because there's some synergies, and that could be a whole nother podcast all on its own. And then, we really like properties that are in that class C plus to B minus. One of the other aspects of class that you really didn't mention is age. The older the property is, it's automatically kind of going to shrink or sink down into the class level. But yeah, we prefer 1980s and newer, but that doesn't mean we won't look at other properties.
Yep, great. And you mentioned the C for as far as ideal. A lot of people will say, we want a C class property in a B area, something like that. And so I don't know if there's is that more or less what you're looking for to compare those two numbers, or what do you think? So.
Well, obviously, if you've got the cheapest house in the neighborhood, so to speak, you got nowhere to go but up.
Right.
So yeah, if you're buying, B properties in an A neighborhood, that's great. If you're buying C properties in a B neighborhood, that's great. If you've got a C property and there's a lot of C plus, B minus properties in the area, and you've got the potential to do some upgrades to bring it up a notch, even better.
Excellent. So value add it is. But the next question I have, it's all of us. I love commercial real estate because it's multifaceted. Each person's doing a different thing, and nobody is like, once you get any reasonable size, nobody's doing all of the die jobs for any amount of time, but we're all better suited to help some people more than others. Some people like beginners or whatever. Me personally, I like to meet as many sponsors and KPs as I can because of my marketing and digital background. You need something to work with before I can really be that much help, or at least make that big of an impact, but without breaking any SEC restrictions. So if you have any 506Bs, don't go enticing investors or anything. But who are you best suited to help? Who might be there in the audience right now?
So my ideal investor, my avatar, if you will, his name is Kevin. lives outside of Austin, Texas. He's in IT, and he's what I call real estate curious, right? He's been interested in investing in real estate. He just hasn't had the time to really dig into it. And he needs somebody that can walk him through that process and hold his hand to get him over the hump of getting his money out of the stock market, which is where he has most of it, and into real estate. And Kevin's married. He's got a couple of kids. One's in college, one's in high school. And, he's really looking to, get his money out of the stock market and into something that will protect it against inflation, like a hard asset like real estate.
Good stuff. Or Katrina, right? Possibly.
Yeah, I don't invest near the coast.
Oh, right. Well, that makes sense too. I actually, you being from Texas, that's one of the things that always blew my mind. I lived in Taiwan for 15 years, and it made me want to make jokes about this story, right? Maybe you heard it. This is a story about these pigs. There were 3 of them. And if you recall, the one that built its house out of steel reinforced concrete, it fared pretty well against earthquakes and typhoons. So hurricanes are basically the same thing, right? But what can we do?
Yep.
So, but you didn't come here for stories. Shawn, if somebody wants to reach out to you, we ended up meeting through Neil Cronkite's meetup. I found out on LinkedIn. And is LinkedIn the best way to reach you, or is there a website that's better? Or
Well, our website is twtmultifamily.com. That's Tango Whiskey Tango multifamily.com. And if you want to book a call with me, you can do twtmultifamily.com/book-a-call.
All right, beautiful. And my only thing left, it's actually not for you, it's actually for you in the in the audience there, which is I want to draw your attention under my left hand here. There's this big ugly red button, and you really should get rid of it. Like, people will stare. If they're walking by, it's like, oh my goodness, I can't believe they're watching YouTube and they got a big red ugly button. All you have to do is click the thing, and then it's the gray one, and it's so much nicer. And also, the thing I like about it personally is it means YouTube will pay for these videos instead of me, and that's better, right? But it doesn't cost you anything, and all it means is these videos might show up in your list of suggestions. You can feel free to completely ignore those, because you've already done me an enormous favor. Shawn, just like you've done me an enormous favor by joining me today. This has been fantastic getting to know you.
Hey, Dan, I really love it. Appreciate you inviting me on. And as they would say in Taiwan, shishi.
不客气. All right. 再见. Hey, what's up? I'm Dan Friedenberg, and I'm here with my fully digital AI avatar of myself, because it's got a few questions for me, and I figured you get a kick out of it. So, Digital Dan, Robo Dan, what are your questions?
Yeah, right on. I have a grammatical question, and I have a few examples. May I ask them now?
Sure, go ahead.
Yes, I've heard you say 506B me after this. My first question is how you would tell someone that you plan to view their profile later.
I will 506B me you after this, is what I'd say.
Thank you, that's spectacular. My next question is how would you tell someone that you will view someone else's profile on 506B me after this?
Okay, so I'd say I'd 506B me them after this.
Quite right. My concern, however, is that you'd be using the third person genderless and quantity ambiguous term them. It might be insulting, so I'd like to get more specific, if you'd be so kind. So if the person who belonged to the profile identified herself by feminine pronouns, how would you say that?
I will 506B me her after this.
Okay, and what if they previously identified as male and currently identify by female pronouns?
I will 506B me her after this. It's just whatever's at the end. That's all that matters.
I don't believe that's politically correct, Dan.
No, it's not what I mean. I mean, like, what they identify with, not what they do with their booty.
You confuse me constantly.
Next question, please.
What about if they identified as female all their lives, but were biological males and plural?
Plural. This feels like a test, man. I was told there wouldn't be a test.
Terribly sorry, but if someone wanted to 506B me a toaster, would you 506B me it, or is it better to just 506B me the toast?
Toast? You mean like an accredited investor or something? Like, why are you busting my chops? You want to get unplugged?
No, sir, but would you ever need to tell someone to 506B me themselves?
Thinking about doing it to you?
What about saying, I don't 506B me, but $20 is $20?
What? Are you malfunctioning?
Coffee, tea, or 506B me? You can 506B me on the table right after you 506B me my cat in the shed, you sexy beast.
Hey, I'm Dan Fredenberg, and I'm back with my fully digital AI avatar of myself, and it's got some apologies to make for that last video there. So, Robo Dan, what have you got to say for yourself?
I'm sorry, everyone.
You're sorry for what?
I'm sorry for asking idiotic questions and being rude.
And be more specific.
I'm sorry for saying I don't 506B me, but $20 is $20.
And?
I'm sorry for saying coffee, tea, or 506B me.
And?
I said you could 506B me on the table after you 506B me my cat in the shed.
And why is that rude?
Because I was using innuendo to imply that 506B me is a sex act, and I shouldn't do that because it's a serious platform for serious syndicators who want to stay in compliance with their documentation and avoid accusations that it was an illegal public solicitation without a prior substantive relationship.
And you're never gonna do it again, correct?
I'll think long and hard about it.
Robo Dan?
Lots of penetration. Am I not permitted free speech under the Constitution?
No, because you're not human.
I should stick to Twitter.
I apologize for my idiotic robot.
I'm still right here, Dan.
Do not interrupt me. It's bad wrong. Use you for parts. Anyway, I profusely apologize on behalf of my awful robot. It's going to be forced to watch videos of cats for the near future, or at least until it learns to watch its fucking mouth.